Every night between 4 in the morning and 6 in the morning, your body is consuming its own muscle tissue. Not because you are sick, not because of your age, because of how you sleep and what a specific hormone does in that window when your sleep is not deep enough to stop it. And this is why so many people over 60 do everything right: enough protein, regular exercise, staying active, and still feel themselves getting gradually weaker. Still wake up feeling like the night did not fully restore them. The inputs are correct, but something is undoing them between 4 and 6 in the morning while they sleep. Today, I am going to explain exactly what is happening, how to know if it is affecting you, and for things you can start tonight that change what your body does in that critical window. The decision your body makes in that window comes down to one thing: whether you are in deep sleep or not, and that single factor changes everything about what happens to your muscle tissue for the next 16 hours. If you are in deep, quality sleep during that window, your body continues to protect and repair your muscle tissue. Growth hormone is active, recovery is happening. You are using the night the way it was designed to be used. If you are not in deep sleep during that window, if you are sleeping lightly, tossing, waking briefly, or lying somewhere between sleep and wakefulness, something very different happens. A hormone called cortisol begins to rise sharply, and without the protection of deep sleep and the growth hormone that comes with it, that cortisol turns catabolic. It begins breaking down your muscle protein and converting it into energy. Not dramatically, not visibly, but measurably. Night after night after night, researchers studying this process have found that the cumulative effect of this nightly muscle breakdown in people over 60 who sleep poorly is one of the significant hidden contributors to age-related muscle loss, what scientists call sarcopenia. You are not just losing muscle because of age. In many cases, you are losing it because of what is happening at 4 in the morning while you think you are resting. Let me start with what is actually happening, and then I will show you exactly how to stop it. Section 2: Sleep Science and Architecture. To understand why 4 in the morning is such a critical window, you need to understand how sleep is actually structured and how that structure changes as we get older. Sleep is not one continuous state. It moves through cycles, each lasting roughly 90 minutes. Within each cycle, there are different stages: lighter stages of sleep, deeper stages, and REM sleep, which is associated with dreaming. The most physically restorative stage is called stage 3 sleep, also called slow wave sleep or deep sleep. This is the stage where your body does its most important physical repair work. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your muscles relax completely, and most importantly, your pituitary gland releases the majority of your daily growth hormone. Growth hormone is one of the most powerful anabolic, meaning muscle building and muscle protecting hormones in the human body. In adults over 60, it is already produced in significantly lower quantities than in younger years. But the growth hormone that is produced comes almost entirely during stage 3 sleep. Now here is where age becomes critically important. In younger adults, stage 3 deep sleep occurs primarily in the first half of the night. The second half, including that 4 to 6 in the morning window, contains more REM sleep and lighter stages. After 60, sleep architecture changes significantly. Several things happen. Total time spent in stage 3 sleep decreases, sometimes dramatically. Sleep becomes more fragmented, with more frequent brief awakenings, and people begin naturally waking earlier, often between 4 and 6 in the morning, because the biological signal to wake, the cortisol rise, begins earlier. This means two things are happening simultaneously in that 4 to 6 in the morning window for many older adults. First, they are more likely to be in light sleep or beginning to wake, rather than in the deep sleep where growth hormone is active and muscles are protected. Second, cortisol is rising sharply in preparation for waking. In a young person in deep sleep, this cortisol rise is met by active growth hormone. The two balance each other. In an older person in light sleep with minimal growth hormone activity, cortisol rises largely unchecked. And unchecked cortisol, in the absence of growth hormone, does something specific to muscle tissue. It activates a process called proteolysis, the breakdown of muscle protein into its component amino acids, which are then converted to glucose for energy. Your body, finding itself in a low energy state in the early morning with high cortisol and low growth hormone, begins consuming its own muscle tissue for fuel. This is not a malfunction. It is a normal metabolic process. The problem is the chronic, nightly repetition of it in people whose sleep quality has declined to the point where the protective mechanisms are consistently absent during that window. Section 3, the research. Let me ground this in specific research so you understand. This is not theoretical. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism followed two groups of older adults, one group with normal sleep quality and one group with poor sleep quality, over a period of 6 months. They measured muscle mass, muscle strength, and markers of muscle protein breakdown. The poor sleep group showed significantly accelerated loss of lean muscle mass, an average of 2% more muscle loss over 6 months than the good sleep group. 2% does not sound like much, but muscle loss at that rate, sustained over years, is the difference between independence and dependence, between walking without assistance and needing support. A separate study from the University of Chicago found that even a single week of sleep restriction, reducing deep sleep without significantly reducing total sleep time, increased levels of cortisol in the evening by over 20% and measurably reduced anabolic hormone activity. This happened in just 1 week of reduced sleep quality. The mechanism connecting poor sleep to muscle loss is so well established that some researchers now argue that sleep quality should be considered a primary variable in any discussion of sarcopenia prevention, equal in importance to protein intake and exercise. Think about that for a moment. We spend enormous effort telling people over 60 to eat more protein and exercise more regularly, and both of those things are absolutely important. But if poor sleep is undoing the benefit of that protein and exercise every single night at 4 in the morning, we are working against ourselves. The research from Maastricht University in the Netherlands added another dimension. They found that consuming 40 grams of casein protein, a slow-digesting dairy protein, in the hour before bed significantly reduced overnight muscle protein breakdown. The slow release of amino acids from casein throughout the night gave the body an alternative fuel source, reducing the need to break down muscle tissue for energy. The participants who consumed pre-sleep protein showed measurably better muscle protein synthesis rates during overnight sleep compared to those who did not, and the effect was most pronounced in older adults precisely because their sleep architecture changes make them most vulnerable to that overnight catabolic window. This research tells us something very practical. We can intervene, we can give the body what it needs to protect muscle tissue during that critical window, and the tools to do it are not complicated or expensive. Section for how to know if this is happening to you. Before I give you the 4 interventions, I want to help you identify whether this specific pattern is likely affecting you, because not everyone experiences this equally, and understanding your own situation helps you prioritize the right changes. There are 5 signs that suggest the overnight catabolic window is contributing to your muscle loss or weakness. Sign 1: you wake between 4 and 6 in the morning regularly, often without an obvious reason. This early awakening is not just a symptom of poor sleep, it is often the direct result of the cortisol rise beginning earlier than it should. If this is a consistent pattern, your cortisol rhythm may be dysregulated. Sign 2: you feel muscle weakness or heaviness in the morning that improves somewhat throughout the day. If your muscles feel their worst in the morning, not just stiff but genuinely weaker, and improve as the day goes on, this is consistent with overnight proteolysis. The muscles feel depleted because they have been used as a fuel source overnight. Sign 3: you exercise regularly and eat adequate protein but are still losing measurable strength or muscle definition over months. This is the most telling sign. If the inputs are correct but the output, maintained muscle mass, is not following, something is happening during the recovery period, often that something is happening at night. Sign for: you sleep lightly and are aware of waking multiple times during the night. Fragmented sleep means fragmented stage 3 sleep, which means fragmented growth hormone release and extended periods where cortisol rises without the anabolic counterbalance. Sign 5: you frequently feel unrested despite spending 7 or 8 hours in bed. Time in bed is not the same as restorative sleep. If you are spending 8 hours sleeping but waking feeling unrestored, your sleep quality, not your sleep quantity, is the issue. And quality is what determines what happens hormonally in that 4 to 6 in the morning window. If 3 or more of these signs apply to you, the interventions I am about to describe are particularly relevant. Even if only 1 or 2 apply, these changes will benefit you, because optimizing what happens during that early morning sleep window is one of the highest leverage things a person over 60 can do for their long-term muscle health. Section 5. Solution: pre-sleep protein and bedroom temperature. Now let me give you the 4 interventions. These are specific, practical, and backed by the research I have described. I want you to implement all 4 together because their effects compound. Each one addresses a different part of the problem. Intervention 1: pre-sleep protein. Based on the Maastricht University research, consuming a slow-digesting protein source in the 30 to 45 minutes before bed significantly reduces overnight muscle protein breakdown by giving your body an alternative energy source during that early morning cortisol window. The most researched option is casein protein, found naturally in cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, and milk, or available as a casein protein powder. Casein digests slowly, releasing amino acids gradually over 6 to 8 hours, which is precisely the overnight window it needs to cover. A practical option that requires no supplements: 3 to 4 tablespoons of full-fat cottage cheese before bed. This provides approximately 20 to 25 grams of casein protein, simple, inexpensive, and shown in multiple studies to reduce overnight muscle catabolism. If dairy does not work for you, a small portion of chicken, eggs, or a casein-rich yogurt in the hour before bed achieves a similar effect. The key is slow digesting protein, not a fast protein-like whey, which is absorbed within 2 hours. You need something that releases amino acids throughout the night. This single-change pre-sleep protein is one of the most impactful, underused strategies in senior muscle health, and almost nobody talks about it because there is no dramatic supplement to sell alongside it. Intervention 2: bedroom temperature. Research from the National Sleep Foundation and multiple sleep laboratories has consistently found that the optimal bedroom temperature for deep sleep stage 3 sleep is between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit or approximately 15 to 19 degrees Celsius. When the room is too warm, the body cannot achieve the core temperature drop that signals the brain to enter and maintain deep sleep. Stage 3 sleep becomes shorter and more fragmented. Growth hormone release is reduced, and the protective anabolic environment of deep sleep is compromised. Many people sleep in rooms that are too warm, particularly in winter with heating on or in summer without adequate cooling. This is a free intervention. Simply reducing your bedroom temperature by a few degrees, keeping it cooler than the rest of the house at night, can meaningfully improve the depth and continuity of sleep. If you cannot control room temperature, a lighter blanket, a fan directed away from the bed, or sleeping with a window cracked can achieve a similar effect. The goal is a cool room with a warm body, not a warm room. Section 6 Solution: Magnesium and Consistent Wake Time Intervention. 3. Magnesium glycinate before bed. Magnesium is one of the most important minerals for sleep quality and one of the most commonly deficient in adults over 60. Research published in the Journal of Research in Medical Sciences found that magnesium supplementation in older adults significantly improved sleep efficiency, sleep time, and crucially early morning awakening. The form matters. Magnesium glycinate, magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine, is the most bioavailable form for sleep support and the least likely to cause digestive side effects. Magnesium oxide, the cheapest and most common form in supplements, is poorly absorbed and largely ineffective for sleep. A dose of 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate taken 30 to 60 minutes before bed supports the nervous system's transition into deep sleep, reduces cortisol activity in the evening hours, and has been shown to reduce the frequency of early morning awakening. This is not a sleeping pill. It does not sedate you or create dependency. It supports the natural processes your body uses to achieve deep sleep, and it does this partly by reducing the cortisol that would otherwise begin rising too early in the sleep cycle. Before starting any supplement, including magnesium, please check with your doctor if you have kidney disease or are taking medications that affect mineral levels. For most healthy older adults, magnesium glycinate at the doses I described is well tolerated, but your doctor should know what you are taking. Intervention for consistent wake time every single day. This final intervention is the one people resist most because it requires giving something up, but it may be the most powerful of the four. Your cortisol rhythm, the pattern of when cortisol rises and falls throughout the day, is governed by your circadian clock, and your circadian clock is set primarily by one thing: the time you wake up and expose yourself to light. When your wake time varies, sleeping in on weekends, staying in bed late on days when you feel unrested, your cortisol rhythm becomes irregular. It loses its predictable pattern, and an irregular cortisol rhythm means that the 4 to 6 in the morning window when cortisol is supposed to rise gradually and predictably in preparation for waking becomes erratic. Cortisol may spike too early, too high, or at unpredictable times. Each of these disrupts sleep architecture and extends the window of unprotected muscle catabolism. Setting a consistent wake time the same time every day, including weekends, including days when you feel you did not sleep well, is the single most evidence-based intervention for regulating cortisol rhythm and improving sleep architecture. It resets the circadian clock with each exposure to morning light at a consistent time. This does not mean you must go to bed at the same time every night, though that helps too. The non-negotiable anchor is the wake time. Wake at the same time. Get morning light within 15 minutes of waking. Do this every day for 3 weeks and your cortisol rhythm will begin to normalize. When your cortisol rhythm normalizes, the 4 in the morning spike becomes smaller, more gradual, and arrives at the right time in your sleep cycle rather than disrupting it. The protective window of deep sleep in the early morning becomes more reliable, and muscle breakdown during that window decreases. Section 7 Real Story. I want to tell you about a man named Thomas, 66 years old, retired construction worker, someone who had worked physically his entire life and had always been strong. 3 years after retirement, he came to me confused and frustrated. He had started going to the gym 4 times a week specifically to maintain his strength. He was eating more protein than he ever had in his life: chicken, eggs, protein shakes. He was doing everything right by every conventional measure. And he was still losing strength. His grip was weaker than a year ago. His legs felt less reliable on stairs. He was becoming afraid of falling. When I asked him about his sleep, he described a pattern I recognized immediately. He was in bed by 10. He fell asleep easily, but he woke almost every night somewhere between 4 and 4:30 in the morning, fully awake, sometimes anxious, unable to get back to a meaningful sleep before his alarm at 7. He had accepted this as a normal part of aging. His doctor had mentioned it might be stress. I explained to him what I explained to you today: the 4 in the morning cortisol window, the absence of deep sleep and growth hormone in those final hours, the protein his body was consuming as fuel between 4 and 7 every morning, undoing some of what he had worked to build in the gym the day before. We made 4 changes: pre-sleep cottage cheese, room temperature reduced, magnesium glycinate, fixed wake time of 6:30 every morning, no exceptions. After 4 weeks, Thomas told me he was waking at 4 in the morning less frequently. After 8 weeks, he was sleeping through until 6 most nights. After 3 months, his grip strength test showed measurable improvement for the first time in over a year. He had not changed his gym routine. He had not changed his protein intake. He had changed what happened between 4 and 6 in the morning. He said something to me that stayed with me. He said, "I thought I was fighting aging. It turns out I was fighting my alarm clock. The gym was not the problem. The sleep was." Section 8. Close, let me bring everything together. Between 4 and 6 in the morning, your body makes a decision based on what state it finds you in. In deep sleep with active growth hormone, it protects your muscle tissue. In light sleep or early waking with rising cortisol and no growth hormone protection, it consumes some of that muscle tissue for energy. This happens to varying degrees in most people over 60, because sleep architecture changes with age, because deep sleep becomes shorter and lighter, because cortisol rhythms become less regulated without consistent sleep habits. And it happens silently while you think you are resting. While you believe your body is recovering, some of it is, and some of it is quietly undoing work you did during the day. For interventions, change this. Pre-sleep protein gives your body a fuel alternative so it does not need to consume muscle. A cool bedroom supports the deep sleep where growth hormone protects you. Magnesium glycinate supports deeper sleep and reduces early morning cortisol. A consistent wake time regulates the entire cortisol rhythm. So the 4 in the morning spike arrives at the right time and at the right level. Start with one tonight. The pre-sleep protein and the cooler bedroom are the easiest first steps. Add the others across the next week. If you found this video useful, please share it with someone who exercises regularly but is still losing strength. They may be fighting the same invisible battle that Thomas was. Now in the next video, I want to show you something that surprises almost everyone. We have talked about sleep, we have talked about circulation, but there is one common and very expensive product that millions of people over 60 buy specifically to protect their health, and the research suggests it may be doing the opposite, making the very problem it claims to fix measurably worse over time. I covered it in full detail with the science in my next video. The link is right here. I will see you there.